So I'll start with the adhesive materials very quickly because it's ancient now, it's no longer applicable. Adhesive materials, الفكرة وراها was sound, was to create what we call a monophasic filling, just like we do in composite restorations. انت بتبقى عايز اللي هو hybrid layer, and you want to bond the restoration to the dentine, to the enamel, so that the dentine and the enamel, they are mechanically interlocked on the micro level, so that they are one. In the end, preventing leakage. Now, if we could create a filling like this in endodontics, ya salam, you'd have no interface, and everything would be good. What is the problem with interface? In any heterogeneous system, you have one phase and then another phase. وما بين the two phases دي دايما there's an interface. So let's give an example. مثلا endodontic situation, obturation. عندك sealer, عندك gutta-percha cones, وعندك dentine. So you have three different materials, heterogeneous materials, and you are cramming them together. Purpose of the cramming is to reduce fluid filtration ما بينهم. صح? So where would you think would be the weakest point in a system like this? Apex? مش قصدي كده، أنا قصدي أنا عندي التقاء materials مع بعض. يبقى الانترفيس ما بينهم هي دي هتبقى نقطة الالتقاء، هي تبقى أضعف مكان، هي دي اللي ممكن يحصل فيها التسريب. Okay, so between the sealer and the cone, between the sealer and the dentine, this is where you will have نقط التقاء، ونقط الالتقاء دي هي اللي بيحصل فيها ايه؟ التسريب. Wherever. So the purpose of these adhesive fillings is to eliminate interface. If I could eliminate the interface between one material and the other material, there would be no possibility of a leakage. And this was the idea. What are the adhesive fillings? Was to create an interface without space. If I could create an interface like this, وتبقى مغلقة على الدنتين, then what? No leakage, or at least minimal leakage. طبعا the idea was very sound, very very sound. أفكار very good, excellent, كلام جميل. طب why did it fail? So this is the idea of the monoblock. If I had a sealer that was chemically similar to the cone, that could bond chemically to the dentine, you would create a system where there is no leakage between the sealer and the dentine, and there's no leakage between the sealer and the cone, reducing your interface, reducing the possibility of leakage. So you have أنواع كتير جدا انتجت وقتها. Epiphany, Real Seal, Endorez, Active EGP, they're all different chemistries. The first three are methyl methacrylate or polycaprolactin, you know, and Endorez were Real Seal, and then the Active EGP was glass ionomer based. الفكرة was the same. All I wanted to do was to bond the cone to the sealer and the sealer to the dentine. This is what I needed. You have examples of these materials. They no longer exist anymore. And you look at it and you see all these bonding agents and priming agents. It's more like something you would use in endodontics. You have the BGP system was منها بعد كده حاجة اسمها اللي هو ال FKG. نفس الفكرة. Gutta-percha cones عادية مرشوش عليها من سطحها glass ionomer crystals. So the cone was gutta-percha. The surface of the cone من برا مرشوش عليها glass ionomer crystals. They would have a glass ionomer sealer. You would insert the glass ionomer sealer into the canal. The glass ionomer sealer will bond by a weak mechanism to the dentine, and it would bond to the surface of the gutta-percha cones by the crystals اللي موجود عليها. So in effect you have a monoblock. You have less interface between the gutta-percha and the sealer, and you have less interface between the sealer and the dentine. الفكرة was good, but the only problem is glass ionomer is soluble, and it's not an effective sealer. we know it's soluble. One of its characteristics is it leaches. So if it leaches out, ده معناها you will have a solid state, وبعد شوية it will leach out, you will have space. So in effect, it is a useless sealer. For a while, we used glass ionomer sealers in endodontics. بقت بفشل ذريع. It was ridiculous. Okay, so why did it not replace gutta-percha? الفكرة was very sound. كلام منطقي جدا. If you could implement it and create an interfaceless filling, يا سلام. Okay, it was very expensive, very expensive. And at the time when I did some research on it, maybe 2008, and العلبة وقتها كان ثمنها 3000 جنيه فيها 2 box of fillings. It was really expensive. It's not just a little bit expensive. We're talking it's way expensive, and still we don't know whether it's going to give us a superior result ولا لا. يعني ماشي أنا كلام الصدق. Okay? How much for how much? How much improvement for how much money? If I'm going to improve 1% for 10,000 increase percent in money, I don't want the 1%. It has to be a substantial increase in percentage of improvement عشان to justify the cost. It was very technique sensitive. يعني احنا already أصلا when we're dealing with composites, it's a technique sensitive process. You're worried about too much moisture, you're worried about too little moisture, you're worried about the thickness of your bonding layer, you're worried about the extent of cure. There's so much that you're worried about, so much, and in the end you don't know if it's going to give you this result or not. ما بالك بقى جوه الكنال apically where you have very little control, very little visibility. ده انا بتكلم على class 5 lesion انت شايفه. ما بالك جوه الكنال. To control these materials in the apical extent of the canal is nearly impossible. To make sure that they are properly cured, nearly impossible. There are a lot of impossibilities in the process itself. Lateral condensation works fine. Gutta-percha has stood with the test of time. طبعا there was also a fear ان انا مش هعرف اشيل الفيلينجز دي. يعني هي هتتحط وهتبقى زي الكومبوزيت مش هعرف اشيل. Are easily removable just like gutta-percha. And كمان وقتها research was not conclusive. At the time before there was research against, and then about 10 years we found that no, they were inferior over time. They were inferior with regards to leakage, and then we stopped using them. Last year or the year before, the suggested that they are no longer an effective alternative to gutta-percha and sealer. So this was 10-12 سنة, and then things just went bye-bye.